All right, so I'm going to demonstrate some enumeration. And my first example, I'm going to call up my instance. And apologies to everyone, but this is a serial example, but they're good examples for enumeration because they usually have a lot of items. And so I have pretended that this newsletter, which is not really in our collection, that this migrated over from Symfony. And I can tell because we've got our favorite all caps Symfony captions that have to be abbreviated because Symfony truncates everything because there's only so many spaces. And, if you have a long call number like this, you won't fit everything. And so all the frustrations that we've had with our Symfony item records over the past 27 years. So anyway, we've migrated over these items. And I want to add a new item. So a couple of questions came up. And first of all, everything that migrated came over in enumeration. So when I click add item, you'll see this enumeration data. And so you can see there's all these nice boxes, but everything that was in subfield Z in our Symfony system, which was our way to kind of separate the enumeration data from the call number part, it all came in this box. So for now, we are not using chronology or volume. And as far as I know, there are no plans to ever use those boxes. So everything's getting stuffed in enumeration. So I have a new special issue about the Pacific Ocean. And so the first thing I want to point out is it doesn't have to be in all caps. Folio is not enforcing all caps. If I enter this in lowercase or mixed case, that is what Folio will accept. The other thing I want to point out is we don't have like this weird limit on how many characters can fit. But as I say that, this is something that we don't know how it's going to look in SearchWorks. So if we have really, really long captions here, it might not be an ideal display to the public. So that's something that we're going to have to figure out, like many things that we'll have to figure out later in SearchWorks. The other thing, of course, would be any kind of spine labels. Think about it, spines are only so wide. And if the enumeration data would be included in a spine label, again, there could be some impact there because, if you have a really long caption here, it's probably not all going to fit on the label. So although Folio will let me type everything, that might not be what we want. I'm just pointing this out. So this is my demonstration that I have entered this and I save it and close. Oh, I have to set material. I always forget this part. Periodical and can't circulate. And now when I show my list of items, the one without the barcode, because I forgot that, you'll see it's added here. So one thing I want to point out also, though, is if you're thinking about this migrated data that came over from Symfony, and so you've got all this all caps stuff, and then suddenly you enter your new issue without all caps, again, like it just might look weird. So that's something that I think maybe we'll have to think about as a policy on the capitalization when you're working with existing records. Like, do we really want all these different mixes of stuff, especially if we might be adding like random issues in the middle of a run rather than like at the end, that kind of thing. I mean, these are kind of more serial issues in some way, but it's just something that I think that we'll have to do. But in terms of actually doing actually adding the item in Folio, it's pretty easy, as you can see. So that was adding an item to an existing, migrated record. The other thing, and let me pause here to point out that I am not getting into the whole in process part of it, because I actually don't I haven't tested that workflow yet, so I'm just putting that out there. This is just adding an item. I'm not putting it in process. Now the next thing I want to show is I have another instance that's a multi-volume monograph that doesn't have any items yet. So let's pretend I just brought this over and I've already put my call number in, and now I want to add the volumes that we have. And here it's a book. I'm going to go ahead and select my circulation so I don't forget to do that, and then go back to enumeration. So again, I can do lowercase since it's new. There's no other items here. And volume 1 actually has a title, introductory survey, so I could put that in there. It definitely will fit, but whether people want to do that, I doubt it. So I'm just pointing that out, that we have plenty of room to play with, but we have to think of policy issues about how much information we actually want to cram into these little boxes. Again, because we don't have that space limitation, we could use different abbreviations if we wanted to. But for now, I'm just going to do what we did, which is V, and I'm entering it in lowercase because this is something brand new, because a policy hasn't been set whether we're going to continue to enter everything in all caps. And do that. And now when I do that, again, I don't have any barcodes with me, so I haven't added a barcode, but this is how I've added my enumeration. And I can add another one. So hopefully that shows that adding these items is going to be pretty easy. They'll all have this call number, and now we've got our enumeration over here. The frustrating thing about this display is you can't resize these columns when you're looking at this. I'm sure you've all figured this out. So a lot of times you really have to scroll all the way over, especially if you've got your barcodes filled in. To see the enumeration column, you have to scroll this box over when you're looking at this display. That's why I squeezed this over, was to give myself more real estate. Okay, so I will stop sharing.
It's okay before you do? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I can share
again.
Could you do one more that just shows a real serial ending, like, volume 2, number 1, April 1985 or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I'll go back to this. Oh, sorry, paste the wrong thing. My little marine turtle newsletter. Okay. Okay, this time I'll actually...
Those turtles don't know how much we love them.
Paste in a fake barcode. Periodical. I wish there was like an easier way to get this data filled in. There isn't. And this data, there isn't an easy way to do it. So I will do volume 2, number 75. And I can use like plus supple. Again, the captions, the punctuation, all of that stuff, I'm bringing it over from Symphony practice, because there have not policy discussions about whether we continue this or not. However, my thinking is that the existing data that migrated over is formatted using this type of structure, using like the colons and everything and the plus sign, that kind of thing. So abandoning it, especially for a serial that migrated over from Symphony, might mess up displays in ways that we can't predict at this point because we don't know what it looks like in SearchWorks. So that's just what I'm going to say. Okay, so now you'll see it. And if I so this is another interesting thing, like the sorting. Since this is Vol2, even though it's 1992, so it's not, I think it's sorting this because maybe Folio doesn't really look at the captions. I don't know, but you know, if they were in chronological order, this should come at the bottom, but instead it's between 1976 and 1985. And it's probably because we go from, there is no volume number here. This is not an unusual situation with some serials, so where they add a volume later. So, you know, you could run into that. Again, we don't know whether SearchWorks would do the same thing. We don't know. I can also show you, like, say it's been bugging me that our special issue on the Pacific Ocean looks good, but the Atlantic Ocean looks really bad. I can edit. And I go to Actions, and I can edit. And I can edit my enumeration. Say special issue, Atlantic. There. Okay, so now I will stop sharing.